Kathleen McCormick, Merton Marcus. I welcome you here tonight for the community outreach meeting. We have passed around a sign-in sheet, so if you haven't signed in, we'd like you to sign in. If you would like to leave your email address, we are compiling a email list for neighbors and other people who would like information as things change. So it's not a requirement, but if you'd like to be kept up to speed throughout the process, if you could see Haley up by the computers before you leave and add your email, that would be appreciated. Because this is a community outreach meeting under the requirements of the CCC, I'd like to read the notice. Notice is hereby given that Fulcrum Enterprises LLC shall host a community outreach meeting for a proposed marijuana establishment on May 28th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. at the Fairfield Inn and Suites, 249 Stockbridge Road, Great Barrington, Massachusetts. The proposed marijuana cultivator and marijuana product manufacturer is anticipated to be located at 22 Van Duzenville Road, Great Barrington, Massachusetts. There will be an opportunity for the public to ask questions. As you can see, I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint presentation. This is the same PowerPoint presentation that we did a few weeks back at the other community meeting. Under the CCC guidelines, there's required to be one community outreach meeting. We heard the concerns and we knew that there was going to be a lot of people that was going to have impact and feedback on this project, so we decided to host 2 meetings. So this is our second meeting. If there was any change from the first meeting, I'll identify what the change is, but it's basically the same presentation that was presented on the first meeting. If you were here on the first meeting, you're going to hear a lot of the same information. There was a few people that were at the last meeting that are not here with us today. For the principals, I'm here with John Heck, who's a principal. He's going to be also speaking and taking a portion of this presentation. The other 3 principals that were here for the last meeting and that are not here today is John's brother Bill and David Ross and Jared Lacer. And they are both locals. David and Jared grew up just over the border in Salisbury. They are both in the industry on the West Coast, and they've been very active going back and forth. Bill and John are both have a development background, and Bill does a lot with long-term care facilities in the Virginia area, and they're multi-generational developers. Unfortunately, we couldn't gather the entire team today. What we have decided to do is to do a question and answer via WhatsApp in case there's anyone who has expertise that can address the questions that some people may have. So we're going to go through the whole presentation and then we're going to end the public meeting, but can answer any questions. We're going to connect the WhatsApp and we will try to see if this works, and they'll be on the screen, and we'll be able to take Bill, David, and Jared in, and we can answer questions. If there's anything that we can't answer at the meeting, we'll get answers to you. If there's any information that you're looking for, we can get that information to you. So let's start. Why Great Barrington? As I mentioned before, 2 out of the 4 team members are from the area. David's father was a longtime business owner in Great Barrington. He spent all of his time in Great Barrington, even though his residence was over the line in Connecticut. And they also, with Jared and David being in the marijuana industry in the West, they thought this was a good opportunity to take their expertise and bring it to Massachusetts and to take advantage of the new laws around the legalization of marijuana. They feel very familiar and very connected to the area, and it was an instant connection with them to bring the business to Great Barrington. The specific location is 5.78 acres on Van Duzenville Road. specifically 22 Van Duzenville Road. It's an undeveloped site. There's an old farmhouse on it. It's the black on the screen there. It's the outlined black area just to the south of the solar array that exists. It's an industrial zone. And marijuana establishments are permitted by a special permit. So today's meeting is for a cultivation facility. Yeah, Ed, thanks. I was trying to leave it open so people felt welcome, but it's kind of loud out there. The area is an industrial zone. It's permitted by special permit for both cultivation and for manufacturing, and it meets the requirements that it's not within 500 feet from any school zone, as required under the CCC and town regulations. Regarding permitting, this is the community, as I open the meeting, this is the community outreach meeting. This is a meeting that we are putting on. This is not a town meeting. There's going to be multiple town meetings going forward. Because it is a special permit. There is no Board of Health requirement on marijuana. There's no specific regulation for under the Board of Health. It will be, as I identified before, a special permit from the Board of Selectmen for cultivation and manufacturing. For those of you who are not familiar with the process, a special permit goes to all of the boards and will end up with the special permit granting authority, which would be the Board of Selectmen. The Selectmen is also the entity who enters into host agreements with potential businesses who wish to have a marijuana business in the town. The other requirement under the town bylaws, the zoning bylaws, is for a marijuana establishment to go through site plan review with the planning board. So there'll be a planning board application as well under site plan review. And on this, at this time, a septic and a well permit is also something that we're intending to obtain from the Board of Health. It is on Housatonic Water Company services the lot, so Housatonic Water Company is available. But we have a potential of identifying a well or hooking into Housatonic water, and there's discussions that are happening regarding the septic and the well permit through engineering at this time. The site visit or the site plan you saw at the beginning is conceptual and is continuing to be worked on by our engineers. And prior to submitting for a special permit, we will have final plans. So anything that you're seeing at this point is conceptual. This is where the project's changed a small bit since we were here the last week. And what it is it's always been proposed to be a greenhouse. The original goal was to do an open-sided greenhouse, so there would be a canopy covering and no sides. The last meeting, one of the key components that we took out of there is odor, that people would have concern with odor. So we had already engaged, but we started working closely with NCM Environmental Solutions, which is an odor control company. They're based in Pennsylvania and have a lot of work in California. Their initial business was waste management and to try to keep the smells with recycling areas, with dumps, things like that. And over the last few years, they've, because of the concern regarding odor and marijuana, they have focused on the cannabis industry. They have over 25 facilities throughout the country now that they are odor management on. And they have 3 in Massachusetts. One is Athol, one is in Salisbury, Mass, and the other one is in Holyoke. I'll give everybody the email. It's or the website, excuse me, is ncmenvironmentalsolutions.com. NCM Environmental Solutions, which is plural.com, and I can give it to, if I was too quick, I can give that to anybody afterwards as well. While discussing the concerns, one of the decisions that was made was to enclose the greenhouses. So the greenhouses are now going to be fully enclosed. They're not going to be open-edged. There's two main ways that the odor control companies attempt to rectify the odor concern, and that's one at the source and two at the property. They feel with a closed greenhouse, they can take care of the problem at the source, where they would have had to specifically rely on the perimeter if it was an open-aired system, an open-sided system. So when we did present the last time, they were the exact same manufacturer of the greenhouses, the same shape and size, they just didn't have sides. And now we're proposing that they're going to be sided. It is not solar powered, but it is cultivated via the sun. So there's no solar array that's added to this, but it is an enclosed greenhouse, which uses the sun for cultivation, and it utilizes environmentally sound growing, harvesting, and manufacturing process. So there's two licenses, and this is mainly the way the CCC identifies what type of licenses there's out there. There's a lot of people in this room have heard about retail, because that's something that Great Barrington has had a few retail clients, and it was discussed at the town meeting. This is going to be, to my knowledge, the first proposed cultivation in Great Barrington, and the manufacturing is also going to be proposed to be on site. Some people might say if you grow, you kind of have to be able to manufacture. They go hand in hand, but they're two separate licenses under the state. They're also zoned as two separate uses under the town bylaws. We are going after a Tier 10 cultivator license. What that means to lay people is each tier is based on square footage, and the greenhouse canopies total 80,000 square feet. It's going to be organically cultivated and raised beds. The CCC controls the process. What happens is you do town permitting, then you apply to the CCC, and then the CCC comes and once they give you their preliminary license, they allow you to build it out in accordance to the approvals that they grant to you. So we will be building everything in according to the CCC approvals under their regulations and town and state codes. So everything will be built to code. And the manufacturing, if you Haley, can you get back to the first site that shows the site plan?
Yeah.
Is that if I could just take a minute to show you, so that everybody kind of understands. These green squares are the proposed greenhouses. This is a metal building that is proposed to be the business offices and manufacturing. So this is the area for the manufacturing license. Haley, if you don't mind going back. And this is where the process which will be happening once it's harvested in this area is where there will be produced the extracts and oils from the plant. And the company will strictly adhere to all of the state, local standards, the Board of Health standards. We also met with all the town departments, where we met with the building inspector and the fire chief, and we discussed their concerns regarding the manufacturing. And we're going to be working with the fire chief to show him the area where the extraction is going to happen prior to getting to the permitting. So this is still in the design and engineering phase, but it'll all be housed in that one contained metal area. The grow season you'll hear a little bit about is a short season. So the greenhouses will be used during the cultivation, but obviously in New England we don't have a year-round grow season. But there will be some activity going on in the manufacturing longer than the grow season. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to John to talk about some of the other pieces of the puzzle, and then we can come back and answer specific questions that you may have.
Just to finish up the image of movement of the product from the greenhouse to the warehouse is a controlled process. Everything is registered. Each plant is registered electronically and monitored, so there can be no diversion. Our security company has significant experience. Matter of fact, he helped Rhode Island draft their legislation and has done a number of these installations. Our team, a little bit more on Dave and Jared, they have been out west for probably a total of 10 years. In the last 7 or 8 years, either as a consultant or a contractor, or in some cases as principal, they've built over 300 facilities in Oregon, Colorado, California, and a little bit in Nevada. So they have significant experience with adapting to local regs, tailoring it to the demand, and working well with the communities. We have engaged Dr. Stephen Witkoff, who is a PhD in planning and design, ecological design. They've examined the site, found no native species of plants on that property. So went out to other areas on a preliminary basis to find indigenous plantings so that he can implement a regenerative design program on our property. And I'm candidly just learning what regenerative agriculture really means. But the idea is that you're picking things that are self-sustaining, wild planting them, and avoiding, our process is totally organic to begin with, and the regenerative planting will not only create something that's visually appealing for whatever you might end up seeing anyway, but it will work towards water purification and other, let's call it, regenerative / sustainable designs. And that's what Dr. Steve teaches. He and his partner Kelly are professors that have specialized in this. So we have a very entire site plan. As Kate mentioned, I think one of the things that we listened to closely was the concerns about odor control from the last meeting, and made the decision to enclose each of our greenhouses completely. And in hiring NCM, they are actually, they're a second generation business that is one of the foremost odor control companies, and I take this at face value, but they're saying they're one of the foremost companies in the world, and they're the only company in the United States that are on all 3 procurement lists for waste management, Republic Services, and Waste Connections, which are the 3 largest waste companies in the world. And I'm happy to give that information out if it's not on their website. The second generation fella, Jesse, now lives in California and has been specializing in marijuana. You can see that on his website, a little narrative, some of the techniques. We are in the works, so I can't report what methodology we're going to be using and finally selecting, but we're assured that there's very high efficiency, that the randomness of open outdoor cultivation is going to be minimized, and that odor is neutralized, not just segregated, as I understand it. So I can't speak to the specific technology and the mechanics of how it will happen, but Jesse is assuring us that random molecules floating around the neighborhood are going to be minimized, if not, I hesitate to use the word eliminated, but certainly minimized. And with 25 or more years of experience with landfills and transfer stations, they really understand the odor molecule better than anyone I've ever spoken with. And that gives us a great comfort level. As Kate mentioned, there is a sort of a triangulation between ourselves, the Cannabis Control Commission, and Great Barrington. So the requirements are overlapping in many areas and then unique in other areas. So we're addressing, we've hired a team of experts to help us through this process. Jim Borghesani and Will Loser are, one is an attorney, they actually might both be attorneys, but they were very involved with the implementation, the design and implementation of the Cannabis Control Commission in its early stages and the legislation in the state of Massachusetts. And they're available to answer questions as we matriculate through this, but also to help us navigate with the Cannabis Commission and with yourselves here in Great Barrington. We have special permit processes coming up, and there's lots of concerns and regulations that we need to be familiar with. So we have that team helping us. Kate is certainly very familiar with the permitting process. SK Engineering is our local engineer. We're comfortable with their expertise and experience in the area. And our security guy, as I mentioned, is increasingly familiar with marijuana related, but he's done all sorts of security for government and school systems and police departments. So he'll be a great resource.
We gotta go through each one.
Okay. So we will meet, I guess I have to read all of this, and my apologies, but we'll meet or exceed all the local and state security requirements. We will have numerous external and internal state-of-the-art video surveillance cameras that will be linked up. We're working on high-speed connections so that our data is available. Images need to be defined, and there's a whole list of requirements that we have to fulfill. Our security guy will be available. Included in that will be key card access for general entry, access to all grow rooms, manufacturing spaces, storage areas, and processing zones. There'll be background checks, exhaustive background checks for all our employees. We will have, this is a well-lit exterior, which is a little misleading. We're actually working with the Cannabis Control Commission to get an exact definition of what that is. An integral part of that is that you will not have ambient light going off the property. The idea that, and we're trying to get the language with the commission defined exactly so that the lighting is meeting all the neighbors' requirements, the police requirements, and the commission requirements. And we will have a fenced perimeter with external cameras, as well as interior video surveillance 24/7 that will have every square inch of any part of the property that has product on it will be under video surveillance with a 90-day backup at all times. Our perimeter intrusions will be linked in duplicate to monitoring companies. We've met with the local police sergeant and we'll coordinate with him as to how we'll notify the Great Barrington Police, whatever these other monitoring companies' requirements are. All our products will be packaged and transported according to state regulations. And by the time our product is ready to move off-site, it will no longer be in an odor transmittable form. That will all happen inside, as Kate pointed out, a warehouse. Perimeter interior video. Oh, okay. Diversion to minors is a very important component. We're working closely with our council, with Kate, and also with our state council so that we truly understand what the Cannabis Control Commissions are. We've met with the local police sergeant and we'll meet again so that there is little to no possibility. Any kind of an intrusion will be picked up immediately, and the probability for diversion to minors is de minimis. Through the perimeter interior videos, our video surveillance at the loading dock areas, in combination with a metric tracking system, which is what I mentioned earlier. Each plant gets a number and is tracked from the moment it's planted until the time it's fully processed. We will be a wholesale business. We will not be open to the public. There'll be no access to the public. And our clients will be probably much fewer, certainly fewer than any dispensary. It will be a final product sale that will probably roll off our property in a panel van or something like that. I don't quite know the scale, but there'll be no external movement of raw product. And redundant here, safe and secure tracking technology. Massachusetts has mandated this. The metric system is very strict. Our guys are very familiar. It's a nationwide system. Our guys are very familiar with it, working in other states. Software and total control. They'll track it from seeding until final sale. And the harvesting, processing, manufacturing, and transportation will be tracked, logged, recorded to prevent loss, theft, or diversion. There are conversations in process for the community benefits to our program. We will be making payments to Great Barrington that will be specified in the host community agreement, which I'm going to guess you're more familiar with than I am, having been through it a number of times. We will be giving hiring and contracting preference to Great Barrington residents and businesses. Our head count is about 6 people at this point. We think we're projecting that we'll generate about $300,000 of new payroll and benefits. That head count of 6 will probably be full-time during our planting season, which is probably, let's call it May till early November, late October, early November. 6 people full-time. That will grow maybe to 10 during planting and harvesting. But other than that, it will be 6 people in an enclosed workspace with little traffic on and off the property. We will work, we are already working, we'll continue to work with all the town departments to ensure a non-nuisance long-term presence in the town. We are indeed committed to being good neighbors, a strong corporate and civic presence, and a contributing neighbor. We're exploring diverse workforce and development programs to benefit areas of disproportionate impact, and that also is a work in progress. The last page is my name and cell number that you can reach me at any time, and I'm happy to do my best to answer whatever questions you all might have.
So before, if you just give one moment, before we, that's the end of the presentation. I think it may be beneficial if you will allow us to try to initiate this